There's not a single syllable of the Bible that condemns or disapproves of the general practice of slavery, and no, 1 Timothy 1:10 is not an exception. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And the first chapter of 1 Timothy has what's called a vice list. This is kind of an ancient literary convention where you just rattled off descriptions of the kinds of people who are up to no good. And one of the descriptions in this list, in verse 10, is this Greek word anthropolistes, which used to be a reference to anyone who enslaved another, but by the time of the New Testament came to refer to those who engaged illegally in the slave trade, either by kidnapping freeborn people or by stealing enslaved people so that they could be sold for a profit. And we can look at the actual usage of this term around this time period to demonstrate this. A good example comes from the novel Kaliroe, written by an author named Chariton. Scholars think this was written somewhere between the late 1st and early 2nd centuries CE, which is the same dating most scholars give to the pastoral epistles, which includes 1 Timothy. This novel tells the story of one Kaliroe, a woman of exceptional beauty, who becomes married to an abusive man named Chaireas, and he suspects her of cheating on him and strikes her so hard that she falls down in a coma as if dead. And they hold a funeral for her and put her in a tomb, and she comes to just in time to startle some pirates who are robbing the tomb. They take her and sell her into slavery in a city called Miletus in western Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and they sell her to Leonas, an enslaved person belonging to Dionysus. And Leonas thinks that Kaliroe will make a wonderful wife for Dionysus and arranges for the contract so that everything is nice and legal, but the pirates take off and Leonas realizes he's been duped and now has a stolen enslaved person and goes to Dionysus and admits what happens. And so here in chapter 2, section 1:8, you have Leonas admitting to Dionysus what happened, and I've underlined this word anthropolistes, which is the singular version of anthropolistes. And in the Loeb Classical Library's English translation, we have Leonas admitting that something has gone wrong. Dionysus says, "What happened? Has the girl you bought run away?" He says, "No, not she, but the seller has. Then he was a kidnapper, and that is why he sold you someone else's slave in an isolated place." Around this same time period, an author named Harpocration put together a lexicon of Attic Greek usage, and he didn't define words, he just provided quotes that gave you a sense for how they were used and what they meant. And under the entry for anthropolistes, he provides a quote by Lycurgus in Against Lycophron, and the quote says, "I am amazed if we sentence to death anthropolistas just for robbing us of our slaves." All ancient societies regulated the practice of slavery, and there were legal and illegal ways to engage in the slave trade. And this word's usage in context demonstrates that it overwhelmingly has to do with illegal practices related to the slave trade, and particularly kidnapping freeborn people in order to enslave them and stealing other people's enslaved people in order to make money from them. And we know that the author of 1 Timothy has no problem with slavery because we can look at chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, where the author tells enslaved people, "You owe your master all honor," and even more so if your master is a Christian. Not a single syllable of that text that in any way, shape, or form condemns or disapproves of the practice of slavery. And if the Bible, as the Protestant doctrine of sola scriptura would hold, is the only inspired, inerrant, infallible, sufficient, and final authority on all things pertaining to faith and practice, then the God of the Bible has absolutely no issues with slavery.